KWT slaying.
Shalom, family. Welcome to another teaching from Teotw Ministries. The title of this teaching is The Stage for World War III, from Assyria to Iraq. Introduction. In this teaching, we will speculate on some things I believe I see in the scriptures that may correspond to what we see every day on the news concerning Iran. I'm not claiming to be correct, but I believe that these things must be discussed. You will have to determine for yourselves the legitimacy of my argument. So family, I'm telling you straight up right now, this is speculation on my part. I'm sharing with you things that I believe that I see. I'm not saying thus says the Lord. As you know, based upon end time prophecy, people have gotten it wrong for centuries. So I'm not going to come up here and say I am absolutely correct. I'm just sharing with you what I think I see. Okay, so now to those who have been following our end time prophecy teachings, it'll be easier for you to understand the points that I'm trying to make and what I'm seeing. And as you will see as well, there's a certain things that I've adjusted my view on as I've learned. So, stick with me. If you disagree with this teaching, that is fine. And, it's just one of those that, if I was sitting in a room with my brother, we'd just sit there and talk about it and speculate on. So I'm going to share with you what I think I see. The raising of a banner to the nations. Isaiah 11:12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. What is an ensign? Ensign is from the Hebrew word nas, or it's transliterated, it looks like neck, but the pronunciation is nas. Okay, so what does that mean? Now, the word ensign is translated sometimes as standard, ensign, a pole, banner, a sail, or a sign. Now, for biblical usage, something lifted up, a standard, a signal pole, an ensign, a banner, a sign, a sail. Standard as rallying point, a signal. Now, in games and in war, especially war games, you have what they call a rallying point. So the banner is lifted to denote a rallying point. Okay? So what type of banner could this be? Two things we know from Isaiah 11:12. God shall set up a banner or an ensign, and then assemble the outcasts of Israel. What could this banner possibly be? Well, let's look elsewhere. This word neck or nas in the Hebrew is used. And in what context? So let's read this definition here. Okay. It says a banner such as was set up on high mountains, especially in case of an invasion. So a lot of times you would even see them in the movies. Like if you had a castle, they'd raise the banner They would raise the banner when they're about to get attacked. They would also raise the banner when they're about to fight. Now, you know, in the old British ways of warfare, they had a banner that they carried with them in battle. So here we see that the word Nas, or neck, but the pronunciation is Nas, but it looks like neck, right? It could mean an invasion, right? It set up a standard. Now God said he's going to send a sign to the nations. He's going to raise the banner. So if banner is in association with an invasion, then the raising of a banner possibly can mean war. So two things: the raising of a banner and the gathering of the outcasts of Israel. We got those two things happening. So the declaration of a war. We saw that the word Nas can be used in reference to lifting a banner in case of an invasion. Could this raising of the banner be a declaration of war? Previous studies, as we have mentioned in many of our videos, in order to fully understand what we are going to teach, you may need to watch our other end-time prophecy videos to see the picture being painted here. So some of this stuff you're not going to get unless you've seen the other prophecy videos, because, you know, for instance, like how we discuss and show that the United States is Mystery Babylon the Great, or the daughter of Babylon. If you don't believe that America is Babylon, then none of this will make any sense to you. But if you believe and understand why we say that America is Babylon, you might be able to follow along, even though you haven't seen some of the other prophecy videos. But there's a lot of things that come together as you look at the other videos. So, you know, as I mentioned about the 400-year prophecy, you know, everything really is the painting of a picture puzzle, right? You got to put the pieces together and build a picture from it. So otherwise, you'll never understand the scriptures. And the scriptures define themselves, okay? So we don't have to make things up. A lot of people make things up. So, you know, I try to let the Bible define the Bible, okay? So the fall of Babylon. Let's read this. Now, I did a study about Babylon, as I mentioned. You might want to go watch it. So here I'm going to make a point. Okay, Jeremiah 50. This is the word of the Lord spoke through Jeremiah the prophet concerning Babylon and the land of the Babylonians. Announce and proclaim among the nations, lift up a banner and proclaim it. Keep nothing back, but say, Babylon will be captured, Bel will be put to shame, Marduk filled with terror. Her images will be put to shame and her idols filled with terror. A nation from the north will attack her and lay waste her land. No one will live in it, both people, animals will flee away. In those days and at that time, declares the Lord, the people of Israel and the people of Judah together will go in tears to seek the Lord their God. They will ask the way to Zion and turn their faces toward it. Two things we see here, family. The lifting up of a banner, okay, an ensign. The lifting of a banner, right? It's the same word for Nas, or neck. It's that same word Nas. The lifting of a banner to proclaim what? Babylon being invaded. Babylon being captured. So what did we see in Isaiah 11? In Isaiah 11 we saw the lifting of a banner, an ensign, a sign to the nations of war. Babylon will be what? Captured. The lifting of a banner, and here we see Babylon being captured. After that, what do we see? After that, we see the people of Israel and the people of Judah together will go in tears to seek the Lord their God. What are they asking? They're asking the way to Zion. So Isaiah 11:12 say what? It says, a sign to the nations and the gathering of the outcasts. So first, the claim for war. the call for war, the time for battle, the announcement for battle of the nations, and then the regathering. Lift up the banner. A banner was lifted to declare the destruction of Babylon by a nation from the north. It denotes a coming invasion as mentioned. After this invasion, the people are asking the way to Zion. Remember these two things. Banner, same word nas as mentioned. Exodus of Israel after Babylon is judged. Also Exodus after banner lifted denoting an invasion. Is the lifting of a banner of war the sign of the fall of Babylon and the coming exodus of the true children of Israel? God said there will be an ensign or a sign, a banner to the nations. Isaiah, a banner is lifted, and the assembling of the outcasts of Israel. Jeremiah, a banner is lifted, and the people of Israel asking the way to Zion. Iran banner, okay? Banner of war. Terrifying moment, Iran unveils red flag at mosque, warning of severe battle to come. Iran has issued a terrifying warning to the U.S. as it raised a red flag over the Holy Dome Jamkaran Mosque as a symbol of a severe battle to come. So, family, Iran raised this banner over the mosque, right, declaring war against the U.S. Now, some of you are going to ask, why does that even matter? Am I taking out of context the idea that a banner of war, of invasion of Babylon is here? Because as you can see, I'm trying to make the connection that this banner that was lifted in Iran is the declaration from the Most High of war among the nations. Now, many of you are going to say, well, Iran is a Muslim country. Iran is not God's people. I'm not going to argue that. What I'm saying is that the Most High is going to use these nations to judge the other nations. As we have seen in the scriptures many times, the Most High would have one of our enemies fight another enemy, and we'll be left standing. Now, some of us don't understand the history that Iran has played in our captivity. And so all nations that have had a role in our captivity is going to be judged. Now, it's interesting, as I was doing this study, I had to make a slight change on something I believed in the past, and I'll get to that. Okay, but the point I'm going to make, or try to make, and remember, I'm not saying, thus says the Lord, I'm not saying I'm correct. This is just what I believe I see. I believe this raising of the banner of Iran is the sign of war and the coming exodus of Israel, the true Hebrew Israelites, the Negro. And I'm going to show you why I believe this. Now, I'm trying to build upon these blocks. Okay, we saw what ensign means. We saw that it means banner. We saw that it is associated with an invasion. What else did we see? We saw, okay, let's say we know that in many of the ancient cultures, banners were lifted on castles to denote an invasion. Flags or banners were carried in war to denote war. Okay, so, and we have Jeremiah 50 denoting the raising of God's banner and the taking of Babylon, or the invasion of Babylon. So I don't think I'm reaching too much here. And so remember, you have to take it all together, all the things that we've learned over the few years that we've been discussing End Time Prophecy, family, of what is supposed to happen, the timing of things, the exodus of the Israelites, the end of the 400-year captivity. All these things have to make sense and line up. So is making sense to me. And I'm sharing with you what I think I see. So don't beat me up if you disagree. If you disagree, that's fine. It's fine. I'm just sharing with you. Iran fights in Iraq. 2 Esdras chapter 15, verses 30 to 33. Also the Caramanians, raging in wrath, shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood. And with great power shall they come, and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. So they're going to waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. Where is that? Who are the Assyrians? What territory is that? And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, and if they shall turn themselves, conspiring together in great power to persecute them. So to persecute who? The dragons, who are the Arabians, they're going to persecute the Caramanians. Then these shall be troubled, bled, and keep silence through their power, and shall flee. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them. So from the land of the Assyrians, the enemy shall besiege who? The Caramanians. Who are the Caramanians? So if you followed our other teaching, you would already know who the Caramanians are. Okay, but I'm going to discuss it as we go. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them and consume some of them. And in their host shall be fear and dread and strife among their kings. So whoever these Assyrians are, their land is going to be used as a battleground. And the enemy is going to besiege the Caramanians in that Assyrian land. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them, the Caramanians. So Caramanians, look at this definition. This is from Wikipedia, family. Caramania, Old Persian, Karmana, Middle Persian, Kerman, is a historical region that approximately corresponds to the modern province of Kerman. Now on the map on the right, family, you can see where Kerman is. It is in Iran. It has a province of the Achaemenid, Seleucid, Aracid, and Sasanian Empire. The region bordered Persia in the west, Gedrosia in the southeast, and Parthia in the north, later known as Abashar, and Aria to the northeast. Carmania was considered a part of Ariana. So, family, the point is this, that the Caramanians is associated with the land of Kerman, modern-day Kerman, which is associated with Iran. So the Caramanians are the Iranians because it's the land of the Iranians, or modern-day Iranians or Persians. Okay, so understand that the Caramanians is the Iranians. So Assyria is in Iraq. Look at this map on the right, family. Assyria is part of the territory of Iraq. Now, if you go further back, all of this territory was part of the ancient Assyrian Empire. All of this part of this landmass that we call Iraq was a part of the Assyrian Empire. But we can see that right up here in the northern part of Iraq, right? Now, you can see the connection there if you look at a bigger map to Iran. And that's why there's a bridge or a pathway that will go into Iraq from Iran. And Iran already has a huge group of Iranians and military people there. As you've heard in recent news articles, the U.S. had bombed one of their generals because he was there in Iraq. Now, they say he was, coming there to do terrorist activities, but really, from my understanding, he was there for a peace treaty. And so they set him up. They put him in a trap. But notice that this is the Assyrian territory. So as we saw in 2 Esdras 15, Iran, or the Caramanians, shall fight in the land of the Assyrians. Possibly Iraq, since we see Iran there now. So this is Iraqi territory today. So if we say that the battle of the Caramanians or the Iranians will happen in Iraq, right? then we can sort of associate today what we're seeing now, because there's a huge presence of Shiite Muslims who are associated with Iranians or Persians in Iraq. Okay, so 2 Ezra 15 states, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. Let's rephrase that. And shall waste a portion of the land of the Iraqis. I don't think I'm stretching here, family. So Iran gets a beat down. So here in Jeremiah 49, we're going to talk about Elam. Once again, that's another ancient name or location of a territory, right? In Persia, in modern day Iran. So let's read Jeremiah 49. This is the word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet concerning Elam early in the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah. This is what the Lord Almighty says. See, I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might. I will bring against Elam the four winds from the four quarters of heaven. I will scatter them to the four winds, and there will not be a nation where Elam exiles do not go. I will shatter Elam before their foes, before those who want to kill them. I will bring disaster on them, even my fierce anger, declares the Lord. I will pursue them with the sword until I have made an end of them. I will set my throne in Elam and destroy her king, officials, declares the Lord. So what I see, family, because, Elam is in Iran, what we call Iran, right? That Iran is going to get a beat down. Okay, so there's a nation or nations that are going to attack and destroy Iran to the point that they cause these exiles or these what we call today immigrants to flee. So just like what happened in Syria when America went in and bombed Damascus and all these people fled Syria and they went into Europe and they went into Turkey and they went to all these surrounding lands, the same thing is going to happen to Iran. There's going to be a bunch of immigrants. There's going to be a bunch of exiles fleeing into other nations. Now, I don't know in history where this has ever occurred to Persia or Iran. If someone knows, let me know. But it seems to me to all start to align, to make sense. Iran will be handled in Iraq by America and her allies, which includes Saudi Arabia. 2 Ezra 15:33. And from the land of the Assyrians shall the enemy besiege them and consume some of them. And in their host shall be fear and dread and strife among their kings. So Iran is going to get handled in Assyria. They're going to get beat down in Iraq. As I showed you, the Syrian territory was in Iraq. Makes sense to me. Just follow along with me, family. I'm building this case. Whether I'm right or wrong, only time will tell. Iran's destruction. Ezekiel 32. Elam is there with all her hordes around her grave. All of them are slain, fallen by the sword. All who had spread terror in the land of the living went down uncircumcised to the earth below. They had no covenant with the Lord. They bear their shame with those who go down to the pit. A bed is made for her among the slain, with all her hordes around her grave. All of them are uncircumcised, killed by the sword, because their terror had spread in the land of the living. They bear their shame with those who go down to the pit. They are laid among the slain. Iran is going to get beat down by the U.S., Saudi Arabia, Israel, and maybe one of the other, maybe like the United Arab Emirates or somebody. They're going to get beat down. But what's going to happen is some of them are going to survive. And Russia and China are going to come to their aid. Now, you should watch some of my other videos where I discuss that in detail. So, Father Yah's vengeance. Jeremiah 50. Since this is the vengeance of the Lord, take vengeance on her. On who? On Babylon. Do to her as she has done to others. Cut off from Babylon the sower and the reaper with the sickle at harvest. Because of the sword of the oppressor, let everyone return to their own people. Let everyone flee to their own land. Israel is a scattered flock. that lions have chased away. The first to devour them was the king of Assyria. The last to crush their bones was Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. Assyria and Iran judged. It appears that God will have Babylon and Iran judge Assyria, aka Iraq, by fighting in Iraq, and Babylon will be judged by the nation from the north and their allies. So the two nations that enslaved Israel, Assyria and Babylon, God is judging them now. That's why Iraq is getting caught in the middle of this fight. Iran's going to get judged in Assyria as well, in the land of the Assyrians. Babylon's going to get judged when Russia and China and her allies come against America. Because don't think that America's going to get out without having a bloody nose. America will get beat down pretty hard. Not only that, there's going to be strife and chaos and civil war and all these things in the United States. America is going to be in turmoil. Easy pickings for anyone who wants to come against her. So, whether it makes sense to you, it makes sense to me. So, Valley of Jehoshaphat. Now, this is where my view of things changed a little bit, family, because in the past, I thought the Valley of Jehoshaphat was Armageddon. I thought it was Armageddon. I really did. But why? Why did I think the Valley of Jehoshaphat was Armageddon? Because the Europeans put that in my head, right? How many of us had listened to the Left Behind series, all these European, eschatologists, and they told us that the Valley of Jehoshaphat was Armageddon. But the Valley of Jehoshaphat is not Armageddon, in my opinion. Now, like I said, I'm not saying I'm correct. And this is a major divergence from what has been taught in typical scholars of eschatology. But I'm of the opinion now that the Valley of Jehoshaphat is not Armageddon. After looking at these scriptures together, I am now of the opinion that the judgment in Joel 3 may not be Armageddon, but the upcoming World War III scenario. As we saw in Jeremiah 50, verse 15, it is the Most High's time of vengeance against the nations. I believe that may be what we are seeing in Joel chapter 3. Because, family, when we read Joel chapter 3, we have to listen to what it's saying. And it's not saying it's Armageddon. And you have to remember as well that in many of these scriptures, things are going to happen over a long range of time, just like our captivity. Our captivity did start after 70 AD, but the total fulfillment of it didn't happen till later. Okay, so we must understand these things. So Valley of Decision is Father Yah's vengeance. The designation, this from Wikipedia, family, the designation of the Valley of Jehoshaphat is applied as a specific toponym for the first time by the Pilgrim of Bordeaux in 333. Since then, it has become a general designation for the Kidron Valley between Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives, which is repeatedly mentioned in the Old and New Testaments under its own name. So who made it synonymous with the Kidron Valley? White Europeans. Your current, what we call right-wing evangelicals. Some call them evangelicals. Now, I don't want to call all of them that because some of them are truly born-again people. But as a whole, they're not much different than their ancestors who enslaved us and hung us from trees. Okay, they have no compassion for us, and they're getting arms, and who the first person or group of people they want to shoot? Black folks. So anyway, let me continue. Alternatively, it may refer to an indeterminate valley of judgment, since Jehoshaphat means Yah judges. Here it would be Yahweh judges, but I'll say Yahuwah judges. In Joel 3:14, the same valley is called Valley of Destruction, or the Valley of Decision. The chapter in question describes how the nations that afflicted Judah and Jerusalem during their Babylonian captivity and return from exile shall receive divine judgment. According to the Midrash Talmud, no valley called Jehoshaphat exists. So, they tried to associate this with the Kidron Valley because it was called the valley of Jehoshaphat, but it's the valley of judgment. This is Father Yah's vengeance on what these nations have done to us. This is what it's about. This is why it's the valley of decision. It's the valley of decision, or the valley of judgment. So let's read Joel chapter 3, family. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. So let's stop right there. First thing we note here. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall what? Bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. So God is going to bring us back from where we were scattered amongst the nations. He's going to return us. That second Exodus. No longer will it be said the Lord that led his people out of the land of Egypt, but the Lord that brought his people from all the nations where they were scattered back to the land. So first we see Judah and Jerusalem returning. I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered amongst the nations and parted my land. So God says he's bringing back the captivity of his people, right? Because they scattered them amongst the nations. This is the regathering. This is God judging the nations for what they've done to us and bringing us back to the land. They are about to beat each other crazy. They're going to beat each other in the head, and we're going to be standing on the side while they fall. And God is going to bring us back to the land. They're getting spanked. And they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. We've talked about this in a different context before. But think about how this ties into Father Yah's judgment and to this world war. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Will ye render me a recompense? And if you recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense on your own head. Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried it into your temples, my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. So when they came in to the temple and they took Father Yah's gold and silver, right, and they took his people as well, God was taking notes. They got to pay back. It's time for vengeance. What is vengeance? It's payback. So if I'm going to get vengeance on you, then it has to be a time of judgment. This is what they call the time of decision, right? Or recompense for what they've done. This is vengeance. That's why I say Joel 3 is not Armageddon. Joel 3 is this coming war amongst the nations. It's this World War III scenario that's happening right now before we leave this land. That's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither ye have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your own head. So God says, or Father Yah says, he's going to bring us back from all the places, like he stated, where we were sold into slavery. That's why they can't get around this. When you look at the scriptures, it's only the Negro who fits this. No one else was sold amongst the nations as slaves, let alone we have the historical documents to prove it. I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of the children of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabaeans, to a people far off, for the Lord has spoken it. So what's going to happen? Father Yah says what? First of all of you descendants of those who enslaved us, you're coming into our hands. Notice, it says Judah. It doesn't talk about the other tribes, because Judah was the main ones who went into captivity worldwide. So Father Yah says he's going to sell your children into slavery. And Judah is going to sell your children to the Sabaeans. I'm just teaching what the word says. Don't get mad at me. Okay? Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare for war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. World war. The nations. Father Yah says, get your weapons ready. Gentiles, it's time to fight. I'm telling you, that's what's happening. I believe that the banner raised in Iran is the message to the nations. A banner will be lifted unto the nations. What? 1 before the destruction of Babylon, 2 before the return of the scattered. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about, thither, cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. People are going to say, well, that's Armageddon, because God is judging the nations. But if you look at Armageddon, if you look at Ezekiel 38, if you look at the book of Revelation, 2 things we see. We see in Ezekiel 38, they come to take a spoil from the people who return to the land. That's why they coming. Now we look in the book of Revelation, the Antichrist is with them, Gog and Magog. And he comes against them. And half of the city goes into captivity. But the rest of the other half of the city is not taken. And we fight against them. But that's another teaching. But here we see that this is judgment. Now, if you're going to say this is Armageddon, right? If this is Armageddon, if all the vengeance happens during the time of Armageddon, then you know all of these things have to line up. So, like I showed you in Ezekiel 38, my teaching on Ezekiel 38, right? Israel, the true Israelites who were scattered amongst the nations, went back into the land after having been scattered. So they were already in the land before Ezekiel 38 started. So here we see this is the gathering of Israel, but the judgment of Babylon and the nations. These are 2 different things. My opinion. I told you I'm seeing things a little differently now. The Gentiles had it all mixed up, had it all wrong. And we got to learn to reprogram our minds because they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know who the true Israelites were. So they could never get it right. Joel 3:13-18. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. This is the valley of decision. Judgment for what they've done to his people. What does that mean? What is vengeance? Vengeance means you're getting payback for something someone did wrong. The Most High said vengeance is his. He will repay. It's repayment. It's recompense. I'm convinced that Joel 3 is not Armageddon. The sun and the moon shall be darkened and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Now, some are going to say, well, we see some of these signs here in some of the Old Testament prophecies about the sun and the moon being darkened. Well, let's stop here for a second and think about it. Remember, we're speculating here. I'm not saying I'm right. But let's think about this. Okay, Isaiah chapter 60 says, rise and shine, for your light has come, for darkness is upon the earth and among the people and on the people. So this could fit into that. And what happens in Isaiah 60 is the return of Israel. I'm just telling you what I see. Not saying I'm right. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake. But the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. So shall ye know that I am the Lord your God, dwelling in Zion, my holy mountain. Then shall Jerusalem be holy, and there shall no strangers pass through her any more. And it shall come to pass in that day that the mountains shall drop down new wine, and the hills shall flow with milk, and all the rivers of Judah shall flow with waters, and the fountains shall come forth out of the house of the Lord, and shall water the valley of Shittim. So, family, right here, okay, some of you going to say, well, see, this is the millennium, and this is where, no strangers come through Israel anymore, and there's no more war, and, you say there's going to be Armageddon. Well, remember, like I told you, if you look at the scriptures, A lot of these things happen over hundreds of years or centuries, right? And so like those first half of the prophecies here and the regathering of the people is those first few verses. Those last few verses will go on until the fulfillment of the entire chapter. So if you can see what I'm seeing, family, just pay attention to vengeance, recompense, decision, judgment on the nation. For what? For what they've done to us. And not only do we see that, we see the regathering happening here as well. This is dealing with that world war. If you go and look at the other studies I did dealing with 2nd Esdras, what does the Apocrypha say? You will see that the judgments that are on the nations is a judgment of war. It is a plague of war. Egypt shall be a desolation, and Edom shall be a desolate wilderness for the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. But Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for the Lord dwelleth in Zion. I will end with 2nd Esdras 15, 5 through 10. Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. So, like I was saying, family, what is this saying? Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world. Plagues, plural, upon the world. What are those plagues? A sword. What is a sword? War. What happens during war? Famine. People die. Things are destroyed. For wickedness had exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Therefore saith the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit, neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Behold, the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. And therefore said the Lord, I will surely avenge them, vengeance, and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them to dwell in the land of Egypt. Now, I've talked about what Egypt is already. It's bondage. Those who went into Egypt again by ships. So we have this world war, this world judgment, this banner going up, declaring war. And we have the return of the captives. And the Most High says, why is he judging them? Because his people were led as flocks to the slaughter. And he says, I'm not going to leave them there no more. This is how it all lines up. It all makes sense. It's the same story. It's all about God and his people, how his people turned from him. They went into slavery over and over again because they were, a stiff-necked people. But God says he's going to have a remnant that's going to return to him. And he's going to bring them into the wilderness of the people, and he's going to bring them there and judge them there and get rid of the rebels. And after he does that, we go into Zion. We go into Jerusalem. It's not going to make sense unless you look at the other studies. You have to understand. And if you don't, then, don't come to me saying, well, I disagree with you, because you don't have the whole picture. I'm trying to give you as much as I can in this teaching. But if you don't watch the other teachings, you will not understand. And you're going to go with that pre-programmed mind that you got from Europeans, that you got from evangelicals. They don't know what the prophecy said because it's our book written to us. They think they know, but they've been saying the same thing for 100 years or more and been wrong ever since. Because they don't know. They can't even see the story. Conclusion. Now, this is just how I see things unfolding, and I'm sharing my insights with you. It does not mean I am correct in my analysis, but it makes sense to me. Time will tell if these things are correct. From what I can see, Iraq, which is the land of Assyria, will be the battleground for the upcoming war between the U.S. and its allies. China and Russia will come to Iran's aid, and World War III will expand to the United States, and those who have enslaved us will be judged. The banner is the ensign to the nations, or a sign to the nations before our exodus. For the Yah's war against the nations has begun. It has begun. This is the time of vengeance, family. It is the time of vengeance. Understand, it's the valley of decision. It is that time, which makes sense because it's the end of our 400-year captivity. Which is why, like I said, all the signs, I'm seeing all of the signs there. But since I'm not God, I can't say I'm 100% correct. I'm just sharing with you what I see. So family, if you like what we do, if you feel like you're blessed, bless us. Become a Patreon member. You're not getting this anywhere else. You're not. Not even close. Now, whether or not you agree with us or not, look at the scriptures. Do your own studies. Maybe you will get something that, a deeper revelation that'll give more revelation to this. So, do your own study. Do your own research, family, because, we can share together, break bread, and, come to agreement and say, hey, we disagree, and walk away friends. Now, one thing I'm going to say, family, it's a lot of people get on me because, they say I kept talking about these other groups of people. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about them no more. But, I can understand why saying things so many times can get on your nerves, but there's a reason to the madness, okay? Just understand that Yakoba has a reason for everything he do. And it's not going to always be in every show. But one thing, it gets on your nerves when everybody come and tell you the same thing. I understand that. I understand how you feel. But be wise as a serpent, but gentle as a dove. So, family, Israel, lift up and look up your head, for your redemption draweth nigh. Israel, your captivity is ending.